Picture it. Summer vacation. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the grass is green, and you are engaged in an epic water battle with your friends.
So what's your weapon of choice? Sure, you could use a water balloon, or maybe even a garden hose. But ask any 90s kid and they'll tell you there's only one option for both mobility and range. That's right, the Super Soaker. But did you know that this powerful water gun was invented by a NASA engineer?
In the 1980s, Lonnie Johnson was working at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. At work, he developed innovative ways to route power through systems and ensure that if one part of the system failed, that power stayed on. At home, he experimented with alternative power sources, like water. And that's how the earliest prototype of the Super Soaker nozzle, originally called the Power Drencher, was born. But Johnson's story doesn't begin there, because before he powered a water pistol that became one of the most popular toys in history, he himself was empowered by the legacy of black scientists and inventors before him, and by the educators who supported his journey. In this episode, we'll explore the role of power in inclusive design and look at how NASA is taking proactive steps to empower diverse and underserved communities. Hello, I'm Eric Stribling with Arizona State University's Interplanetary Initiative, and this is Space for Humans. Power has a number of definitions. To an engineer, power is the rate at which work is done in a unit of time. Unless you're taking calculus, where power is the number of times a number is multiplied by itself. In the context of computing, it could be processing speed. There's electric power, solar power, hydropower, and wind. And when the power goes out, you notice. Especially if you're at a certain dinosaur amusement park. Power is also a measure of access to opportunity, to knowledge, and to social and economic capital. It's this kind of power that gives us the freedom to follow our passions and talents. As the late, great Stan Lee reminds us, with great power comes great responsibility. And we thought about this quote while working on this episode. This show has a platform. And like any public-facing platform, that comes with power. And we take that responsibility seriously. It drives the choices we make and the stories we tell and the voices that we elevate. To design the inclusive space futures that we imagine, we need every kid today to see themselves as part of building that future, whether as an astronaut or part of a small satellite startup, or like Lonnie Johnson, a systems engineer. And that will take work. As we talked about in our first episode, science and engineering are still very homogeneous fields, predominantly male and predominantly white. To learn more, we spoke with Dr. Louis Andre Brownlee, Computer Information Systems and Education Studies faculty at South Mountain Community College, who advocates for equity and justice in education.
There's a pivotal scene in Spike Lee's 1989 classic, Do the Right Thing. The character, Bugging Out, played by Giancarlo Esposito, is eating his pizza when he looks up at the restaurant's wall of fame and notices something. There are no pictures of black people. We like to say, if you can see it, you can be it. And while there are definitely more steps involved in equity of opportunity, seeing yourself reflected in the world is vital. It's how you see your own potential, not just where you are right now, but where you're gonna be. Growing up, my textbook pages were a lot like the Wall of Fame in Sal's Pizzeria. I didn't see a lot of engineers who looked like me. We call that the hidden curriculum. What's not included is as important as what is included. When people of color don't see themselves in math and science education, they may get the message that they're not welcome in industries like space and engineering. In the classroom, that pattern continued. In all my years of higher education, from undergrad through my doctorate, I've only had 3 black professors. That's 3 out of about 70 courses. To me, racism is about erasing my history and alienating me from what's available to those who are empowered, and that includes recognizing myself on the wall of fame and in the room where it happens. That means boardrooms, classrooms, and rooms where new technologies are being designed and new mission plans developed. Over the years, I worked hard to make space for myself. As an educator, I made it my life commitment to make sure that my students see their potential reflected in both me and the curriculum. I like to tell my students that engineering is math and science shaking hands to solve problems. But problems are more often complicated than we first realize. To really understand how to design inclusive solutions, you have to understand history and power. And those two things have been largely kept out of the engineering curriculum. But history is still present. And if we don't learn from it, we're doomed to repeat it. Mathematical models may get us to the moon, but they won't help us empower all the people who may someday live and work there. We don't want redlining on the red planet.
What is redlining? Redlining is named after the red lines drawn on maps around neighborhoods that were deemed unfit for investment. It's a historical practice of discrimination against communities of color, especially Black Americans, affecting everything from access to bank loans to transportation and fresh food. Redlining continues to impact the health and wealth of these communities today. And it's not just a problem of the past. Research shows that redlining is still happening, only now the patterns of bias come from both humans and machines.
So what does this mean for the design process? Another handshake between engineering and humanity. One model I use with my students is called the triple bottom line. Whenever you come up with an idea, you got to think of 3 things: planet, profit, and people. It's only a win-win if all 3 of those are checked. Are you making a profit to keep the business going? Are you respecting the planet? How are you maximizing benefits and reducing harm to people? But I would add a 4th P, power. Who has historically held power? How are you empowering people? How are you disrupting historical patterns of marginalization? How are you making sure everyone has a voice in your room and a hero on your wall? That's what I teach my students. But it's also what I teach my son Phoenix, who dreams of one day being an astronaut, and my daughter Athlyn, who wants to be an activist against hate and racism.
As Dr. Brownlee explained, diversifying space means both changing representation and changing access. It means changing the way things have been done in the past and forging new ways that don't just include historically underserved communities, they empower them. So what does that look like in practice? Let's talk about NASA's Equity Action Plan. First launched in 2022, this plan laid out goals for how NASA would work to expand its relationships with minority businesses and communities. It includes things like increased outreach to historically Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, expanding both recruitment events and grant opportunities. HBCUs have graduated more than 50% of Black educators, 80% of Black judges, and the first Black woman Vice President of the United States. They are also responsible for more than 40% of Black engineers, like Super Soaker inventor Lonnie Johnson, who earned both his bachelor's and master's in engineering from Tuskegee University. Tuskegee is also where one of Johnson's heroes, George Washington Carver, taught generations of students. You probably recognize Carver as the father of the peanut industry. He developed more than 300 uses for the peanut, though peanut butter was not one of them. But what you may not know is that Carver's work in crop rotation revitalized Southern agriculture, helping to both combat soil depletion and improve nutrition. You can see how the benefits of investing in HBCUs extend beyond the universities to the local communities and, of course, back to NASA, where both the research findings and experienced talent pool will be invaluable for future missions. Take the 2023 DEAP grant, which awarded $11.7 million to 8 historically Black colleges to support innovative research combining data science and AI. At North Carolina Central University, for example, researchers are harnessing machine learning to help improve the monitoring and management of natural disasters like flooding. At Morgan State University, they're working to make earth science education more engaging. And at Florida A&M University, they're studying salt formation to help us better understand the surface of Mars. NASA's Equity Action Plan also aims to increase diversity across NASA's supply chain by setting aside billions of dollars in funds for contracting with minority-owned small businesses. As Dr. Brownlee said, it's important to ask how the actions we take are disrupting historical patterns of marginalization. When you make a choice to look beyond the traditional large suppliers and partner with new small businesses, you're helping to disrupt those patterns. In other words, you're using your power responsibly. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell for more Space for Humans.